Welcome to The Ripple, where extraordinary women executives get real about their career journeys. This season, thanks to our partnership with GNW Consulting, you'll hear even more stories from women leaders about how they're building visibility for themselves, their careers, and their companies. I'm your host, Ashley Lobbs, and today we're joined by the reflective Deidre Hudson. She's the VP of Sales and Marketing at Yell and the author of How the F Did I Get Here? Words to My Younger Self. She's here to talk about the mindset traps that keep us quiet and how she broke out of them. Deidre, thank you so much for joining us. I'm really excited to be talking to you today.
Thank you so much for having me. I just always love talking with women about women, and I'm excited about this topic for today. So thank you for the invite.
I want to talk about your journey with visibility because I know that this all kind of culminated in a book, which we'll talk about more, but like in your life, what was it that became a turning point for you that you decided to start focusing on your intention and your visibility on your personal brand?
Actually, there were a couple of things. Just to be totally transparent, there were things in my personal life where I ended up filing for a divorce. And there were things in my professional life where I felt like I knew more, but I wasn't really saying a lot, or I didn't feel like I really had a platform to say the things that I knew. So it just kind of culminated with, you have this epiphany one day and you're just like, you know what? I'm tired of this. I could do more. That's how it kind of started. I had written this little book that I had in the back of my head for, a couple of years. And then one year I decided to just finally go ahead and publish it. And I think just that as an act of courage and just an act of demonstrating faith in myself, it just started to have this ripple effect. And I just started to continue to do more, to show up for myself and to trust myself more.
So did the book come first and then that was kind of a diving board into the rest of like speaking up and your personal brand and all of that?
Came about the same time because it was around that time I was working at a company and I made CMO. And I was a little bit scared of it at that point because in my mind, because I was hired as a VP of marketing. So in my mind, I was going to stay a VP of marketing for a couple of years. Then I was going to show some awesome numbers. And then it would be a no-brainer that I would become a CMO. And I was made a CMO in like 6 months. And I was like, wait, what? Like, do I really deserve it?
That's so, you're working towards a goal and you convince yourself, I don't deserve it until I do these things. It's going to take this much time. And then when it's given to you, you question it.
Right. And that's exactly what happened. So it was, I think, around 6 months of doing that work and my seeing and really kind of growing into and blossoming in that role because it was doing exactly what I wanted to do. I mean, it was exactly what I wanted to do at that time. We talk about, there's books that talk about being in your zone of genius and, 10x is easier than 2x. And all those ideas and those ideologies are really focused on you doing what you're best at, right? And not trying to do everything, just do what you're best at. So what I realized in that role was that I was doing things that I was good at. I liked building systems. I liked building, processes and procedures. I liked working with the high performance team. I liked looking at numbers and working backwards to make sure that we were getting to the right, doing the right things to get to the goals and using data to uncover other things that we could be doing. So it was perfect. So it was around that time that things were happening in my personal life. And, you just get this culmination of things. Where it's like, well, if I can do it over here, I can do it over here. Right.
That's right. It's all connected.
Right? It's all connected. And they say how you do one thing is how you do everything. So I stopped shrinking, basically. I stopped allowing myself to shrink. And that's been a constant ongoing journey as well. But it was around that time that these things kind of came together at the same time. And I realized that I wanted to make sure that I was doing things that I wanted to do and not shrinking back from that. So,
that comes back to something you said earlier about feeling like you were silent, feeling like you were being quiet, either because you were stopping yourself or you didn't have a platform. What was going on there in your life that you felt like the safest thing to do or the best thing to do was to not speak up?
Fear.
Fear of what?
It was fear of being seen, fear of being found out. Like, oh, she really doesn't know as much as she thinks she does. or she really doesn't know as much as people think that she does. So it was that imposter syndrome in overdrive. It was like, if I stay quiet, at least no one's going to be pointing fingers and saying, "Oh, you're wrong, you're dumb, you're whatever." So the things that we do to ourselves, it's insane. I mean, you ever see this movie with Mel Gibson? It was called What Women Want. And
Mm,
he was able to get into the minds of women. And he was this ad exec, and he was able to get into the minds of women. He was like, "You worry about a lot of stuff." It's true. And we just, for me anyway, that was true. It was like just kind of shooting yourself in the foot constantly. So I just got tired of it. And I saw it necessary.
it really isn't necessary. And I think that's the thing that's hard to realize sometimes. It's so easy to get caught up in those thoughts of like, I don't deserve this unless I know everything and I'm better than everyone else and I have all the answers or whatever it is. And
Right.
you're afraid to speak up because, if I speak up too soon, they're going to know that I don't have all the answers yet. And they're going to think I'm never
Right.
worthy of this thing. Right.
Right.
But like those are all just thoughts. And so really that's just like we're projecting our own beliefs about ourselves like onto other people that have never said this a lot of the time. And
Exactly.
and we let it
Exactly.
get in our way.
We do. We do. And, I heard this stat, I'm sure other women have heard this stat about, a man will apply for a job if he knows 50, 60, 70% of what's on the job description. Right. And he says, I can figure out the rest. But a woman, if we don't know 99% of the things and then some that's on that job description, then we won't go for it. And it really is a form of self-sabotage because there's this other saying, either you will or you won't, or if you think you can or you think you can't.
You're
Either
right.
way, you're right, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, and I could go on forever about memes and quotes and stuff about that, but at some point, it all starts to make sense. And when you start to recognize your patterns and how your patterns of thinking, they form your behavior and that ends up being your results. And having that awareness, I think, is so key.
I totally agree with you. And just thinking about that statistic about the qualifications for jobs, it was making me think something that I want your take on. So often, we talk about people failing upwards, right?
Okay.
And I think it's interesting that some people might see a man going for a job or a promotion where he's only got 50 to 60 whatever percentage it is of the qualifications and think like that's how you feel upward, right? Is like you get those opportunities. But it's not because you're a man, it's because you're willing to take the risk, right?
Yes.
I mean, like
Yes.
maybe there's some patriarchal stuff in there, we don't know. But like that's also demonstrating that men are more often willing to take the risk. So it's just like, oh, is it failing upwards or are we keeping ourselves in a super safe box so that we never fail?
That's a really good question. And I think the insight behind that is why, right? So why are we so risk averse? Why are we so afraid of quote unquote failing? And maybe it's not a fail, maybe it's a learning experience. Why do we do that to ourselves? I think figuring that out and, stopping that cycle, awareness is key for that. And just starting to know yourself and to be your own best friend. There's another saying of like, if we talk to our friends the way we talk to ourselves, right? We wouldn't have any friends. So being your own friend and just giving yourself the opportunity to explore and to fail and to fall down and to get back up. Because nothing is guaranteed, nothing is perfect. But if there's a lesson to be learned in it and we can learn that lesson and take it to the next thing, then it's not a failure. But we have to not be afraid to take that risk.
And I want to hear what that experience was like for you, either as a CMO or putting your book out into the world. Like these are both ways in which you become more of a public figure, right? Like you are out there. And I think one of the difficult things about music and art is that when you put them out into the world, there's a way in which they're no longer yours because they exist to be interpreted and consumed and judged by other people. But I don't think
Yes.
that's not just art, right? That's also ourselves. And the book that you put out into the world is also, that's an art. And how hard was it for you to take the risk when you become CMO, when you put this book out, to put yourself out there to be seen, in a way, consumed, judged, interpreted? Did that feel like a risk for you?
It absolutely did. And you said something that really sparked a thought in my head about that, because I typically describe myself as an introvert, or sometimes an extroverted introvert. But for me, I live in my head, right? So as long as I had these ideas in my head about a book or about a milestone I wanted to achieve in my career, it was safe. No one saw it. If I didn't do it, no one knew about it. It was safe. And the moment, as you said, when you put those things out there, it almost becomes, you feel unsafe because now it's out there for the world to see. And like you said, to judge you by and to have questions about and have comments about. And it's like anything else, I think, when you start doing one thing and then you realize that you didn't die, right? You didn't automatically implode or something when you publish the book and someone saw it and read it and say, hey, I read that book of yours. So, and then that just bolsters you, I think, to believe that you can do other things. And then you just kind of keep going and you take one step more and one step more. So I think that's the benefit of it. And that's how it was. That's how my journey was.
It reminds me of how our bodies can't tell the difference between being confronted by a tiger and an email that we've got to write. Like it feels the same in our body. And so it makes me ask the question, what are we actually afraid is going to happen, right? If our fears are realized and we're judged, what are we afraid is going to happen? And realistically, if we go through that list, 95% of the worst case scenario is not going to happen.
Yes.
But sometimes the threat of someone saying something about us just feels so wounding that like we can't even take the thought of it. Like the thought of it is so unsafe. Like I think about, as a writer and as somebody who puts myself out there, I get rather personal and I think I'm rather emotional about things. I share those vulnerable things and I think it's one of my strengths, but oh man, there are so many times when I put something out there and I'm just waiting for someone to just think I'm an emotional woman, you know? Just like I'm just so emotional and it's so inappropriate and it would just like wound me to the core if that happened. And my body treats that like the same risk as just being, kicked out onto the street. On the Ripple, we are constantly in conversation with leaders who tell it like it is. No Instagram perfect filters. So let's be honest. When you start a new role, you've likely opened a set of reports and dashboards and immediately thought, what even is this? If that's you, or if it's ever been you, you are not alone. GNW Consulting helps marketing leaders get clarity fast. They'll audit your systems, make sense of your MarTech stack, and give you a clear path forward. No tech decoder ring required. Whether you're new to the team or just ready for a reset, G&W can help you lead with confidence from day one. Plus, they're a huge supporter of Wednesday Women and our goal to amplify women and support women executives. So visit gnwconsulting.com to see how they're helping leaders like you get to market faster with less friction.
That is so interesting because I've been hearing a lot more recently about emotions and the importance of emotions. And it's exactly like you said. It's like we had this shift, this cultural shift away from thinking that, oh, you have to be logical. You got to think about it and it has to make sense, from a logic perspective. And not saying those things are not true, but in the groups that I'm in and the coaching circles that I'm in, I hear more and more about, I even heard this at the Google conference once a couple years ago, about how emotions are the drivers of your actions. Now, you can be led by your emotions in a bad way, right? If you just follow your emotions, but emotions are the catalyst for doing stuff. You feel something and you want to continue feeling that, or you want to not feel that. But they're the catalyst for your actions. And we shouldn't discount them. We've been putting them on the sidelines and then kind of giving them a bad rep. Like you said, it's an emotional woman that we're characterized by that, and it's a bad thing. But that's not true. And I've been working a lot on things like somatic awareness, and I see a therapist, a cognitive behavioral therapist, and those two practices together helps me to become aware of when something is happening that even if I can't articulate it, if it doesn't feel right, then it's probably not the right thing for me to do. Right. And being able to listen to my body. And I tell my sons this. I have an older son that's in college, starting his senior year in college, and he was trying to make a decision. And I said, how does it feel? How does it feel for you to be in that situation? And I think that's a good listening point that we need to take. It's a data point that we need to reincorporate into our lives and stop giving emotions a bad rap. Right. And then with the CBT therapist that I see, then she helps me to take these thoughts, and maybe these thoughts that I have about, oh my gosh, if I push this button and send this email, I'm going to die. And it's like, okay, why are you thinking about it that way? Could we think about that in a different way? So I think these things are just pathways to open up more self-awareness and pathways to help us to identify more of the things we want in life, more of the things we don't want in life, so that we can stop living under this fear umbrella and being so risk averse and afraid to use our voices and afraid to be seen.
I mean, it's all connected, right? And I just think about when you were talking about the discomfort of being given the CMO role early, being given something that you know you wanted and that you knew on some level you already deserved and you just had to prove it. And I think about that with so many things with a lot of the women who are listening, who are interested in building their visibility and speaking out about what they know and sharing their experiences and their feelings. And they know that they deserve to do that. They want to do that. But I think a lot of people let fear, like you said, hold themselves back from doing it. What's been your experience since you became more of a public figure, as you started putting yourself out there more? How have people responded to you?
Oh, the response has been great. I try to share what I learned, right? I don't profess to be an expert, but I know that I have allowed myself and taken myself on a journey, a real journey of awakening and self-awareness, and I just try to share what I've learned along the way and what I'm continuing to learn. So it makes me happy when something that I say resonates with someone and it helps them, pick up the next piece in their journey. So the response to, the things that I've been saying and talking about has been wonderful. And I'm grateful to be able to have a platform to help other women, people in general, but not
Yeah.
just women, other people, but help people just benefit from the things that I've learned and help them along on their journey.
I want to poke at something that you said, which is, I don't profess to be an expert. What do you mean by that? What are you not an expert about that you're kind of like hedging your assessment of yourself?
I'm glad you picked up on that, because when I say I don't profess to be an expert, in my mind, the expert has already done it. And to me, I'm still doing it. Like, I'm not going to tell you how to lose 20 pounds because I haven't done it yet. I'm working on it, but so that to me is the difference. But that also is, I won't say a flawed way of looking at it, but it does reflect something, because life is a journey, right? It's never over until it's over, right? So hopefully you are going to be still learning and still growing and still accumulating experiences that you can share and that may help someone else. So when I say that, that's kind of reflective of that. Still a little bit of old thinking that I probably need to get rid of in my brain, but that's how I look at it.
No, I think that's a totally fair point. And it is good, if you haven't done something, to not position yourself as having done it. And there are ways that, like, none of us are there are things that I'm not an expert at and there are things that I am, right? But I think we're all like an expert in our own experience. And that
Yes.
seems to be mostly what you're sharing, is just trying to help other people by sharing the experience that you have, the journey that you're on, and becoming with people, and not necessarily, saying, I have become this thing, I've reached the summit of the mountain, and now I will be your Sherpa on the way up to where I already am. It's like, no, here's where I'm at. Let's climb this mountain together.
Exactly. Exactly. I couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you for that. I may write that down and use it actually.
You're welcome to, free of charge. Yeah, I think that there's so many forms of expertise, and there are people who are like supreme experts at what they do. No question about it. And there are people who most of us know a lot and also have a lot of gaps. And so we have a lot to share, stories to tell, but some things we don't know, and we come to our community and we figure it out. But I also think that there are people who are just learning. People who are just entering their fields and just getting started can also be thought leaders and can also speak up and just be on the journey of learning and share along the way and connect with people who are interested in that, right? And that's its own kind of expertise, I think. It's its own kind of leadership. So I guess that's something that I always hope people will embrace more, is just that you can, maybe expertise isn't the right word, but you can be a thought leader, you can speak up, you can share, you deserve to share your experience no matter where you're at in your journey.
No, I totally agree. I held it for a few months and I would really love to resurrect this. But for a few months, I was holding monthly roundtables for people who were in marketing at the manager or director level. And my goal there was to share with them the experiences that I had and to bring people from my network in to help coach them along on particular topics. So we had a topic about creative. We had a topic with Brandy Starr about expertise. And, it was really, really great. And one of the questions I would get a lot from, people at that level, the manager and director level, was that, well, I want to post on LinkedIn, but I don't really know if I have anything to share or anything to post about. And I was like, no, you absolutely do, because you have a perspective, you have a point of view from where you are right now in your career. There's someone else who's probably going through the same struggles or same challenges that you are. So you absolutely do have a story to tell. So when I say I'm not an expert, I'm kind of separating out because I'm speaking, I think, more about like my personal life journey. When I started talking a lot about marketing, so I'm kind of in that way of that personal life journey. Yes, if you're looking for that Sherpa who has attained everything, they've got the perfect marriage, they've got the perfect weight, they've got the perfect home. And no, I'm not the Sherpa to guide you on that. But do you want to talk about marketing and how do you build sustainable foundations for growth and for scale? Hell yeah, I can. I consider myself to be pretty damn good in that, right? So I can talk about that. But I think you're right. And it's like there's different kinds of expertise, right? Depending upon where you are, what you're talking about, and what your goals are. So absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. I love looking at those different parts of yourself and kind of evaluating, like, how am I presenting this part of myself to the world, right? And I think that there's something really approachable and relatable and beautiful about the reality that, we're all human and we live imperfect lives, you know? And so I think most of us feel the same way about our personal lives as you do. I've been through a divorce. I've been through plenty of mess in my life. And what you're saying is relatable. I think that that kind of perfection isn't so relatable, you know?
Hey, who has that?
Well, so often we hear stories of people who have it and they're deeply unhappy. It never quite lines up the way that you expect it to.
That's why, like I mentioned earlier, I think the willingness to go on that journey of self-awareness is so important. I mean, for me, being willing to open up myself to examine the thoughts that I'm having, examine the interactions that I have with people. How am I presenting myself? Because the way that I present myself may not be the way it's being received, right? To be willing and open to look at those things. I think that is such a deeply rich and deeply curious and satisfying way to go about life, because the more you know about yourself, the more you want to know, the more in tune you get with yourself, the more you start to understand yourself, and not to sound too hokey, but to fall in love with yourself, right? And to fall in love with yourself, that's like I think the best love you can have. So, but it's a journey, and a lot of people may be scared of it or unaware fit. But yeah, I encourage people to look at that, not be afraid of that,
Yeah.
break that can of worms.
Well, I want to wrap up our time with a question about your book, How the F Did I Get Here? Advice to My Younger Self. I think it's a great concept. And I want to know what you hope the women who read this book take away from it.
As I talk more about it and as people have read it and make comments on it, I think what I want people to take from it is that it's okay to not be okay, basically, right? Because shit happens and it's okay to not be okay. And the only thing that you really need to work on is to be able to look at yourself in the mirror and like what you see. And that is a journey, and that takes courage, and that takes a willingness to examine and to have questions and to change things. But that's the only thing, that's the only thing that really matters. So I want women to know that it's okay to not be okay, and just don't be afraid to love and take care of yourself.
That's a really wonderful message. And I think we need stories that reinforce that idea, and also that it's okay to be seen when you're not okay, that you don't need to hide when you're not okay, that's like a time when you can find comfort and support in your community and the people that you surround yourself with, and that you deserve it.
Yeah, exactly. You deserve it. Don't ever forget that.
Yeah, and you deserve all the good things that have been happening for you, Deidre.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And hopefully there's more to come.
No doubt about it. This conversation is just one of them. I know I'm so grateful for this time that we've had together. I've really enjoyed this conversation, and it's given me a lot of food for thought today.
Love to hear that. Thank you so much for having me on the show today. I appreciate it.
Now that we're at the end of today's episode, take a moment to reflect on how Deidre's story might inspire your own. What are you tired of? And when you consider your options, how do they feel? If today's show inspired you to think of an extraordinary woman leader in your life, let her know about the Wednesday Women Executive Membership. It's a safe space for women leaders to tackle any challenge, ask questions, and uplift others. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please give us a review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Your ratings help us grow and inspire even more people. Thank you to our Season 2 sponsor, GNW Consulting, to our executive producers, Melissa Moody and Leslie Greenwood, and to our technical producer, Yelena Georgievich, with Kind Media Productions. I'm your host, Ashley Lobbs, hoping this small ripple creates a big wave in your life. Until next time.